Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar from HelpSystems and Infor. We're excited to be with you here today to be presenting the topic, Viabiy IBM I for ERP. I'm Tom Huntington. I'll be your host today. We have a fairly short agenda today. We're going to do some introductions, and then Ross is going to talk about, Ross and Gary, about 9 signs your ERP is viable on IBM I, and then some bonus reasons for ERP on IBM I from me. And we are recording today's event, so if there's somebody in your group that needs to see a copy of this, don't worry, we'll send you out a recorded copy of the webinar, or you'll be able to download it right from our website. I'm Tom Huntington. On our introduction slide, EVP of Technical Solutions from HelpSystems. Been with HelpSystems over 27 years, and I love our marketing team because they put up a picture that's about 10 years old. That makes me look really good, so I'm happy about that. I spend a lot of time with business partners, large customers, webinars, trade shows, and just a variety of events that we do on behalf of HelpSystems, so excited to be with you. Ross, maybe you can introduce yourself, a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Ross Freeman. I am the strategy leader for IBM I solutions at Infor, which specifically is for the manufacturing space. So have had about 35 years experience in the manufacturing ERP arena. Been with Infor about 15 years now. So happy to be here, and let me turn it over to Gary.
Yes, good morning, Gary Erickson. I've been with channel management for about 10 years, with Infor just over 6 years now, and with Ross and the XA team for the lion's share part of my tenure at Infor, and been focused on discrete manufacturing as well, and happy to be here.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Ross. We're going to turn it over to Ross now to talk about 9 signs your ERP is viable on IBM I, and Ross and Gary will probably tag team this a little bit. So first slide up for you, Ross, is Viabiy I.
Very good. Thank you, Tom. So what we wanted to talk about briefly was, how do you know that you have an ERP that will be viable on this platform over the long term? And, the simple statement is here in the slide. I mean, you have an ERP product that has a demonstrated and future demonstrably long-term commitment to an ERP that is competitive. That's a key point here. A lot of people have ERPs on IBM, the IBM I platform, but they're not necessarily keeping them competitive with the market, which of course goes to the idea of whether or not they're viable on I over the long term, which is really what you want to focus on, because an ERP back in the day, that was not exactly a long-term relationship necessarily. People change them often. And now it's a lot more like a marriage. Typically, you have an ERP, you don't usually change it without an extremely good reason. So you need to look further into the future and see if the future of your ERP on the platform is viable. Next slide. So we'll look at the 9 signs, and I'll kind of step through these quickly as time is a little short, but we'll talk about each individual piece of this as not only is this important for an ERP in the market in general, but how does that apply to an ERP that works on the IBM I? So if we go to the market requires SMAC slide, Tom.
We are there. Yep, it says
okay.
9 sides for ERP is IBM I, and now we're on the market requires SMAC. Yep.
Very good. Thank you. So SMAC is an acronym we use. I think IBM uses CAMS for something similar, but we think SMAC has a lot more impact, as it were. But if you have an ERP in the marketplace today, you have to have something delivered in this area, or you have fallen behind and probably too far behind to continue in this market long term. So you're looking at social, mobility for the ERP, an analytics strategy, where you are able to really get at the data in the ERP, and then there has to be a cloud offering. Whether or not any of these is of interest to you directly, these are required for market viability. So this is the first thing you're looking for. Do you have an ERP that has a strategy and some delivery in this area? This is all evolving. It's not necessarily fully baked for all vendors, but they have to have strategies here, or they will not be around. Next slide. So if you look at SMAC, you want to make sure that the vendors at least attempting to put that on the IBM I or at least Power Systems. They may have an open source or Linux strategy, that's okay. You want to make sure that they are at least making the effort. It's not always easy to put all this on the I these days, but you need to see that there's an effort being made. Because of this next bullet, a lot of the vendors that are out there that are on IBM I are trying to sneak around you, and they're trying to surround the IBM I system with non-IBM applications. They're trying to, specifically, if you see a lot of Microsoft, if you see them pushing that on you, they're trying to embed the Microsoft stack in your shop, and that may be what we call the surround strategy, that at some point there's so much Microsoft in your shop, it seems like a good idea to leave. And that some vendors are doing that. They look like they're I vendors, but they are not. So you need to watch out for that. Next slide. So the next aspect of viability for an ERP vendor, and this applies across all ERP vendors, they have to give you more than what they gave you in the past. They have to be able to extend that suite beyond what it was. So if you look at this slide, what was traditionally known as ERP is at the bottom of that center circle. What you see, this happens to be the Infor version of doing this, obviously, since our competitors didn't share their slides with me for obvious reasons. But on top of that is built a social aspect, which we call Mingle. ION is a communication middleware, and then around that is taking what was traditionally known as ERP and extending that into other parts of the enterprise. You have to have this if you are viable in the market. You just don't have a choice. And again, all the major ERP vendors have built this through acquisition, so there may be a variety of operating systems involved. They're not all going to be compatible with the I, but you are looking for this extended ERP capability, or you may be looking at a vendor that doesn't have much of a future because they're not able to make the investments it takes to stay viable in the market. Next slide. So the next sign, we mentioned SMAC, we mentioned cloud. I want to dig into that a little bit. You have to have a cloud offering. Again, do you care? Perhaps, perhaps not. The analyst will say you got to go to cloud or you're falling behind. That is not correct, but it is correct in terms of evaluating a vendor. If they do not have a cloud strategy and a cloud delivery coming, then they are not keeping up with the market. It is very popular in the market. It is where most of the new deals are. So if the vendor is going forward on the IBM platform, they have to have a cloud strategy. We'll see in a moment that it doesn't necessarily matter if you want that. It's a matter of market viability. Next slide. So the key question here for you in terms of IBM I is that an IBM I cloud? You will very often hear vendors say, hey, it's in the cloud, it's all good, it doesn't matter what platform it runs on, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we all know that if you are running on some other platform in the cloud, it's just not going to run as well. IBM's done a lot of work to make the I a good cloud hosting machine. All the benefits you get on-premise apply in the cloud as well. So you don't want to fall for that argument that, hey, what difference does it make? Let's just put you in the cloud and you don't care what the OS is. The reality is you still do, even if you go to cloud. The other thing you need to keep an eye out for, this is a general point, some clouds allow you to modify the software and some do not. Some of them force you into whatever the vendor tells you is the way you need to run your software. Some provide some tools to help you personalize and tailor the software, but you need to be absolutely certain that you have the ability to modify your software in the cloud, unless you really want to hand over your entire life to the vendor. That's fine if that's what you want to do, but we generally think that's not such a great idea. So be careful of a no modification cloud. Next slide. So cloud is nice. What if you don't want it? You need to make sure that the vendor gives you the option of going on-premise. You're probably on-premise now if you're listening to this call, and you may have no reason whatsoever to change that. If you want to stay on-premise, there's a couple of reasons, any number of reasons why, and the vendor needs to provide that option to you. First of all, you need to understand the cloud is a subscription service. It's pay as you go. You stop paying, you don't have any software anymore. You pay as you go. It is a rental. Whereas on-premise, you have typically a perpetual license, and you pay maintenance or not as you choose. So there's a very different financial picture there. And what you need to watch out for typically is the cloud-only products, because they're all extremely new. They don't have the history of the products that have been around a while that started on-premise. They don't have the functional depth. And as far as we know, there is not any cloud-only product that runs on IBM I anywhere in the market. So it's an IBM I customer, whatever ERP you're running, probably if it's been maintained over the years, it's pretty functionally rich. It's probably very stable. You don't necessarily want to exchange that for something that's functionally thin and less stable running in the cloud. Next slide. So you have on-premise and you have cloud. Chances are you're going to want to mix and match. If you go to cloud at all, you're probably going to take part of your application stack and put it in the cloud. You're not going to just take the entire thing and shove it into the cloud up front. So sometimes for transitional reasons, people want to do a hybrid cloud. Sometimes just for pragmatic reasons, they want to have a hybrid cloud. They are more comfortable with some applications but want to allow the vendor to manage others where they don't want to build the skill sets, for example. You may want to keep your ERP on-premise because you have the skill sets and you're comfortable with that, but some of those extended applications, you want to put them in the cloud because you're not comfortable with your ability to run them and you don't want to skill up to do it. So a vendor has to have the ability to do a hybrid deployment. All or nothing clouds are a nice theory, but they're very difficult in practice. So you want to make sure the vendor gives you this option. Next slide. So the other thing that we need to point out, not only some of the transitional issues for a hybrid cloud, but let's say you wanted to go cloud and then decided you don't want to go cloud, you want to go back on premise. Again, you may transition the other direction. So make sure that you have this capability at your fingertips. Next slide. The next one, mildly comic title there, but the reality is that it's very difficult for small ERP companies to deliver what is needed in the market. This is now the game for pretty large companies. When you look at the number of applications we're talking about, the number of connections involved, the investments it takes to make all that work, this is a game for big boys now. Next slide. So I've been in the business a very long time, since before it was called ERP, and some of you may have been in the business for a while. Back in the day, people would literally, I know a couple of people who actually wrote an ERP in their garage, you know, a couple, 3 people, they had a dog and, you know, a heater, and that was pretty much how they developed it. Those days ended a while back, and the complexity of doing this just continues to go up and up. The number of applications involved, the scope of the applications, just the financial capability to acquire those applications, because it no longer makes sense to build all those out. It just is a matter of large scale. It's not possible to be a full-scale ERP, as I've described, if you're a small-scale company. I mean, you can do what was traditionally known as ERP reasonably well, but you can't hit the big time. And if you look at the IBM I market space, ERPs that run an IBM I, which is a smaller market than some of them, that's even more critical. How does the vendor get the scale? How does the vendor make the investments for IBM I? Some can, a lot cannot. So you need to make sure that they have the ability not only to do this, but to do it in IBM I. Next slide. Talking about skills, the vendor has to maintain that skills base. As we all know, in IBM I, there's a bit of a gap in terms of the development of skilled people. IBM's done a lot of work to improve the development of IBM I skills out there in the market, but they kind of lost focus for a while, so there is a bit of a gap out there. How is that vendor going to maintain those skills on IBM I? How are they transitioning from some of the older developers that are getting up there, that have been with the product since the beginning, to a new generation of developers? How are they doing that in their support area? So one of the things that's interesting about a cloud, if they have an IBM I-based cloud, interestingly enough, the vendor becomes their own biggest customer as soon as they have a cloud offering. So it changes the way the vendor looks at that skills base. It changes the way the vendor looks at the way the software is built, because the vendor is now also a customer. So they are, as a cloud operator, they are kind of on the same side of the fence as you are now. So it's a reason why a cloud strategy is important, even if you're not interested in cloud. Next slide. So take all that together, you know, is the vendor committed? I mean, you can see what it takes to be committed to developing an ERP. It applies in the IBM I market just as much. And you need to look out for vendors that are trying to move you in some way. I mentioned the surround strategy. A lot of them are a little more public about it, and they have this, we want to upgrade you to the best and brightest and the future platform and all the rest of that, which coincidentally doesn't have to run on IBM I. They are not committed, obviously, and you need to, if you're committed to the platform, you need to avoid vendors that are going to pull that on you. And you're looking for how much are they really investing? How much have they delivered? It's hard to judge a future roadmap, but you know, the results are pretty much in. Have they delivered over the last 5 to 7 years? Have they done things for IBMi customers, IBMi applications in the areas I've mentioned. You need to see real results for that IBMi software, not promises. If they have made those investments and they are not actively pushing you to another platform, then you have pretty good assurance that they are committed. And again, to reiterate, you need to be cautious about small-scale vendors just because their future viability is in doubt. They have perfectly good software, but one of the unique features of the ERP business is that when you fall below the viability bar, you don't just go out of business, you fade away slowly. So you need to be cautious about smaller vendors. Some of them are quite good, but they generally don't have the wherewithal to do everything I've talked about. So with that, let me turn it back over. Unless, Gary, you want to inject a few things at this moment, and we'll turn it back to Tom.
Thank you, Ross. Gary, I unmuted you here. Gary, any additional thoughts?
Well, thank you, guys. I just wanted to add that there really has never been a more exciting time to be part of the IBMi community. You know, with alliances from HelpSystems and Infor, there are more options today than ever before that meets the needs of your businesses. Cloud on-premise or hybrid deployment, heavy developments are being made in financial management, business intelligence, mobility, or whatever else your company needs to improve performance and remain viable in the marketplace. So I just thought I would put that in there based on some of these topics that were pointed out by Ross.
Thank you, Gary. While that was going on, I did open up a polling question. We hope that you can take some time to answer that. What ERP package are you using? I hope I have enough choices there. I know some of you might be using combinations, but feel free to choose what your main vendor is. And then also, if you're running those products on IBMi, are you interested in any other areas that might deal with help systems, from scheduling to monitoring to document management, security, et cetera? And then regards IBMi, what are your concerns for this platform going forward? And I should also mention that we did do our marketplace study again this year and look for some results for that coming, talking about IBMi and what people are doing on it. So up to me now to bring this home and deliver some bonus reasons why IBMi for ERP. And first thing that comes to mind for me is security. And my mind, I always ask people a question: where would you rather have your data? You want it on IBMi or you want it on some other platform? I would argue that your data should be more secure on IBMi. However, I'll also point out that, like any system, it's configurable. So if you've made some mistakes along the way, like you have all your data opened up to a thing called star public, that means pretty much anybody can read your data if they have access to a command line or some other utility. If you are concerned about your security, HelpSystems does offer up a free security scan. Something that we can do as a free service. We'll take a look at your security and help you out with what's happening. And, you know, honestly, I think when you start looking about open source Windows and other platforms, you know, viruses and less control would concern me for my main business. Certainly, there are places for Windows servers and places for Linux servers and things like that in the marketplace, but security and my business is highly important to me. Then I also think about high availability, and you know, one of the things that this platform is known for is not only its high availability, but its reliability, but then also its success at being able to be recovered. I know customers that go to their annual DR tests, and the IBM I team is done doing the recovery, all done, successful again, and the Windows guys are sitting there looking at each other and making changes to the recovery plan again, and still not having a successful recovery. So where do you want to put your business from a standpoint of high availability? In IBMi world, there are certainly software options and hardware options that can make your experience very good in this area. You know, and then the other thing to remember is IBMi server, again, has a very low downtime. So again, where do you want to run your business? Something that's highly available or something that you're always fighting? And then automation. One of the interesting things that we see in IBMi is there are a good percentage of the customers that are running their environment totally lights out, which is just really going to speak towards that TCO topic of total cost of ownership and being able to essentially manage your servers, to manage them by exception, to be able to not only monitor them but do automation. You know, business process automation is really a reality on IBMi, and we've been doing it for years with customers and helping them run their ERP in conjunction with their backup processes and running all those things totally unattended. And I always like to point out, when it comes to automation, the more rules we have, the fewer problems we have. Let the computer system run itself, and you'll be successful. So some other things as we wrap up today's why IBMi is a viable platform for ERP is, don't forget that this system was built for business. It has a built-in database that has built-in security, that has integrated commands from an automation standpoint. Those are just some of the nuts and bolts of the platform that have made it very successful, and why, one, it's hard to move from the platform. The other thing to keep in mind is HelpSystems and Infor are fully behind IBMi platform, are fully committed to it. So we appreciate you joining us today. A couple of infomercials on HelpSystems. We provide enterprise scheduling, business process automation. We also provide the monitoring, security, business intelligence, document management, all that can be centered around IBMi. Of course, we too have branched out a bit out into other servers and other platforms, and even can help you with your network monitoring, backup and recovery, etc. So let's see here. So at this point, we're open for some questions. If you have any questions, feel free to send them through the chat toolbar feature. And one of the first questions I see out there, Ross and Gary, is somebody's asking about the next kind of national level Infor conference. Where is that going to be, and when is that?
Yeah, the national Infor conference is in Forum. It'll be in New York in July. I believe it's the week after July 4th. I have to get the exact dates. But you can go to the infor.com homepage. It's splashed all over it. There are also IBMi user groups specifically for the XA product that will be happening, I believe, in April, and an enterprise integrator user group that will be happening, I believe, in October in Atlanta. And there's some regional conferences for XA, and I was actually just on the phone with the System 21 product manager, and he is looking to add some System 21 conferences. So there's a lot of options. There's quite a few conferences go on every year, and we'll be happy to help direct you to the one that makes the most sense for you.
Excellent, excellent. Any other questions out there today? I know it's kind of a short event. We're sitting right at the bottom of the hour, but do you have time for any more? Gary or Ross, any other ones that you see? Because sometimes I don't see them all.
Yeah, just to touch back on that last question, Tom, if you do have any questions about any upcoming events, you know, feel free to check the website, of course, but if you want to reach out to me or Ross directly, we can guide you to some of these regional events. Depending on where you're at, we can make that alignment that would offer pretty minimal travel costs for you and your colleagues.
Yeah, I know I've seen events out in Grand Rapids, Chicagoland, and other parts of the U.S. So. Okay.
In fact, Gary, I believe the next one up is Racine, Wisconsin in March.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's the third week of March.
Okay, great.
Excellent. Well, we want to thank you for joining us. I guess I can say happy holidays to all that are with us today as we march towards the end of the year and that period of time. So thank you again for joining us. Have a wonderful day. This was a recorded event, and you will be able to play it back at a later point in time.